Thanks so much for joining us on this big conversation here on Simplified with me, Tanvi Shukla. Today we're going to talk about what is happening in our neighboring country of Pakistan. Imran Khan is out. Shehbaz Sharif is in as the next Prime Minister. He has been now elected as the Prime Minister after the no confidence motion against Imran Khan that he lost. What does this really mean? That is what we're going to talk about. We're also going to break it down for you and look into the various aspects of the political turmoil, the economic turmoil, and everything else that's going wrong in Pakistan. What conditions led to the ouster of Imran Khan? It's extremely important to try and understand that. We will also bring in the connection that the Pakistani political setup has always had with the Pakistani army and even the ISI. How the Pakistani army has always yielded immense power, and if that is something that we will continue to see even in the future, and why is it that the setup is so for the last 4 to 5 decades. Joining me in this special conversation is a senior journalist and an expert from Pakistan, Mr. Maid Ali. Thank you so much for speaking with us. Mr. Maid Ali, we're just getting in more details of this big development in Pakistan. Not surprising for many. Once it was clear that Imran Khan is out, it was obvious that Shehbaz Sharif will be the next Prime Minister. But help us understand this. It may not necessarily mean the end of all problems for Pakistan, does it?
No, it does not. It does not. Rather, it's an uphill task for the new joint opposition government, I would call it. Joint opposition government. It's an uphill task. The good thing is that the joint opposition comprises of many ethnic parties, like parties from Balochistan, parties from Pakhtunkhwa, and of course People's Party from Sindh, and Muslim League in Punjab. So we've got a conglomeration of many political parties which have serious problems apart from the major economic crisis. Other problems like missing persons and like having a free political hand and many others, But it's really an uphill task for this joint opposition to get on with the business as required. And the foremost priority that they have fixed for themselves is electoral reforms, which is a huge thing that has to be taken care of, because Imran Khan's government, the former Imran Khan's government, had done some I would say disturbing legislation through ordinances, which was uncalled for. We never have we seen in the past so many ordinances being resorted to by the sitting government, even when the parliament was in session. So there are certain areas which need to be addressed, and this government, apart from two major political major problems like economic crisis, which is a huge problem, we have seen that another problem has emerged, and which is that the nation is getting divided. It is getting polarized, and it is getting polarized very seriously, where the difference of opinion has sort of hit the rock bottom. It has divided even families, and it has been done deliberately, I would say, by former Prime Minister.
Oh, you're absolutely right, Ms. Maid Ali. The problems that you listed out, especially on the economic front, the inflation problem, the fact that we're looking increasingly at a more polarized society. I think that's not just unique to Pakistan, but several other countries in this entire region itself. India at some level is facing it, though our challenges may be slightly different. Today I was reading another piece about how Pakistan may need to learn some lessons from Sri Lanka when it comes to what's the on-ground reality and how policy decisions have actually led to that. And I will talk about that in just a bit. But to understand first this new united opposition. It's obviously a coalition of many parties. Each of them and their leaders have their own ambitions. As Shehbaz Sharif, as obviously a veteran politician here, will he be able to keep the entire group together? Does he have that kind of a hold, or do we see that within this coalition also there will be problems? Obviously, outside the coalition, it doesn't look like PTI is going to let up. They're continuing with their campaign. So, is it going to be tricky from here on? And are we looking at then a lot more of instability?
No, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't predict or I wouldn't say anything regarding instability at the moment. I don't know. Let the time pass and let some something happens. Let Shehbaz Sharif assume the office. He has taken the vote of confidence. Now he has to take the oath. And once he assumes the office, then we'll start talking about the future of this coalition when things are put on the ground and things are rolled. At the moment, yes, you're right, absolutely. Apart from major crises that this country is facing, and there are minor crises which could, if resolved, which could bring stability to this country. Like, for instance, the problem that we have in Balochistan, it has got to do with one party that we have not mentioned, and they have played very well. The Pakistan establishment has played very well during this crisis in the last 1 month, and they've handled the situation because it was getting out of hand on Saturday, I suppose, Saturday night and the night between Saturday and Sunday. So it will largely depend on the establishment how they would address the issues of like Balochistan National Party and that JWP and even their independent candidates, one from Bhutanisa, one from Gawada. There there is a growing issue of rights for the local people. So and of course NQM, they also claim that they've got a huge list, around 100 missing persons. So there are certain issues which could be managed by the establishment with the help of with the support of the government. Once the government sort of um, it starts going for after these issues, they could have uh, much room to play with the help of the establishment, and that will largely depend on the establishment. How far could they go in helping these issues sorted out? And these are real major issues which have real security concerns.
Okay, one more question about Shehbaz before we come to the to other larger aspects of this, and that is that Shehbaz Sharif, like his brother Nawaz Sharif, faces a lot of corruption charges still in Pakistan, and in the last few years they have moved at a snail pace, extremely slow pace. Perhaps people even forgot about it, but obviously in the last few weeks they have become part of conversation again. We've seen some activity in the court. We've also seen this being used as a political tool in Pakistan. What happens to those corruption cases? Should we then again assume that they will be in cold storage? Will it be a problem?
I think they've already been put in a cold storage today because there were hearings involving Shehbaz Sharif and his son Hamza Shehbaz today at Lahore, which have been sort of put on pending till 27th of this month. And FIA didn't contest those cases in the court today because the court was going to indict them today. It was supposed to be. It was said that and the court would indict them both of them today, but they were put on hold for a while, and I think they might go in the cold storage, which is very unfortunate and ironic. But I really I'm not saying that those cases don't have any meat. I'm not saying that, but I doubt the sanctity of the cases as well, because Imran had been sort of using NAB and FIA and all of this agency at his disposal ruthlessly, and even sort of making cases out of nothing. And many accused have been released by the superior courts.
Oh, all right. I understand what you're saying, because I think when it comes to high profile cases against big names and big politicians and powerful people, I think they move in this, sometimes they move in the same direction as they do in India and Pakistan. So it's
Yeah,
something that
yeah,
even our audience will understand. Now, let's
yeah.
talk about how did we reach this point before we again connected to what can we expect in the future. How did we reach this point, Mr. Maidali, where Imran Khan, who came with a lot of people support, who came in with the support of the Pakistani army, who had good relations with the ISI chief, who had good relations even with the other extreme outfits in Pakistan, seems to have suddenly become everybody's villain and been pushed out in such a manner. What really went wrong for him in the last 1 year?
Well, if you ask me, I think Imran Khan n- never had the metal to become the prime minister, in my opinion. It could be very harsh and very straight, but that is how I look at things. Uh, he proved very good as a leader of the opposition while he was in the opposition. Though at that time he had complete. I'm again stressing on complete support from the establishment, and he made former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif's life miserable for years, and we lost a lot during the course. But as he was brought and given a bigger responsibility, I think, uh, and made the PM, I think he just couldn't handle it right from the word go. He couldn't handle it. The problem with him is that he thinks that he knows everything. This is my not only my opinion. I have seen, I have observed him doing this. That he doesn't like sort of any you know talking to people and getting any advice. He's a little bit shy, and a mixture of shy and arrogance, and that has, I think, caused major damage to his rule, which things got aggravated, except barring, I would say, barring and the handling of COVID, which was actually done by the army primarily. They were at the helms of affairs, so they managed COVID, but the rest of the issues were not addressed properly, and we went to IMF late. We got that we've got our relations solved with many countries, very friendly countries. We got our CPAC on put on hold with Imran Khan having suspicion of corruption in it, and then we've got our relations sort of our foreign policy was in shambles throughout, and then to top it all, I would say inflation did the work. Imran Khan couldn't handle the economy. He changed many, I think four or three finance ministers who couldn't deliver, and they couldn't have delivered without very aggressive policies, which Imran Khan resorted to at last. But sort of you have to keep a balance between foreign dictation from IFIs like the IMF and domestic issues, the problems faced by the people with inflation remaining in double figures all along. It was very difficult to take decisions, and he did not take decisions at time. And and I believe the thing which has suffered or dealt Imran Khan a blow was mismanagement, total misgovernance. He had a pathetic chief minister in Punjab. Uh, he didn't have any sort of control over Sindh. Balochistan was also sort of being uh, run the way it was running. Uh, he didn't make any decisions in time. He didn't push things. He didn't, I think, oversee things to make all this possible. Governing is not an easy task. It's a huge task. I'm not saying that Shehbaz Sharif could do this easily. But I think I found Imran Khan totally incapable of handling the office of the Prime Minister.
Okay. Of course, there's also much that has been said about how over the last 1-2 years, because of his failures or in terms of governance and delivering on governance, he even fell apart with the Pakistani army chief and the ISI chief. And in fact, the rivalry between General Bajwa and the rivalry, his rivalry with the ISI chief at that point of time, and Imran Khan choosing to side with the ISI chief also did not go down well with the Pakistani generals. And once you lose their support, once you lose their blessings, I think the task just becomes easier for everybody else to corner you, to target you, and to move you out, and which was what seems to have happened in Imran Khan's case as well. Remember, Pakistan is a country that hasn't really seen a prime minister finish their entire term. That's the level of political instability that takes place, and the kind of intervention that we see repeatedly from the Pakistani army side. So in 1958, we saw a military coup take place when General Ayub Khan came in, and then he went on to rule the country for several years. There was martial law for 44 months, but even after martial law was removed, he effectively was the president who had the control for several years after he took charge in 1958. In fact, the India-Pakistan War of 1965 also took place during his term. Now, after that, we saw that another civilian government did come in, didn't last too long again. And another military coup took place in the 1970s. So that was the next one that took place when Zulfikar Ali Bhutto was actually removed. General Zia-ul Haq then came to power and took charge of the country. And every time the narrative is the same. There's a fallout between the civilian government establishment there and the Pakistani military. The Pakistani generals, lose faith in the sitting administration. Then the Pakistani army intervenes and takes charge, and that obviously then goes on for a long time before any civilian establishment actually returns. And this is what I want to understand from our guest, Mr. Maidari. Why is it from the 1950s to the 70s, through the instability of the 90s, till General Pervez Musharraf's time, and now as well, that the defense establishment yields so much power even when it comes to the political setup?
Well, it's unfortunate. It's really unfortunate that our excuse me our establishment had an upper hand in our politics or in the running of this country, and they had been playing playing extensive role. They have been meddling with the political business, with the business of the government at various points in time in the Pakistan's history. It's very unfortunate, but you see that has to do with the start that Pakistan took, after 1947. This military establishment had a chance to sort of first create a vacuum after Qaid Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah's death, and then capitalize on that vacuum, fill that vacuum, and they've been pushing for getting more and more space in the governmental business in every decade. And I believe you've mentioned, of course, Ayub Khan, and then you've mentioned Zia-ul Haq and Musharraf. Of course, we had half of our history has been sort of spent on fighting against martial laws. We've been voicing concern over it. We've been sort of protesting these unconstitutional regimes. But that is how it is. It's saddening, but it happened, and it has damaged the very fabric, the political fabric, the democratic fabric of this country to a great extent. I am really surprised how we are still managing whatever we are managing at the moment after all those eras, very dark ages, I would say. I remember uh, Ziaul Haq's martial law, and then Musharraf quite. I'm I was I've been a journalist for the last 30, 35 years, so I have seen that martial law very closely, and I feel sorry for this country how the military junta had sort of made inroads in our polity. They have now managed many things. Uh, I would call very discreetly, uh, and they have more tools, more I would say ways to handle things at the at in the polity. They have their people. Imran Khan, for instance, was brought in with a huge support from the establishment, and Nawaz Sharif was sort of ousted through the same force. But now, in this episode, I've seen the army, especially General Bajwa, I would say, uh, dealing the whole issue very intelligently, because we were expecting martial law a couple of days back. We were at the brink of a martial law, and it was not because they wanted to come in. It was really the PM wanted to come in and just to, yeah. Imran Khan is a spoil sport, He wanted a martial law rather
Yeah.
than to give in to Shehbaz Sharif or any of the political party. And I don't remember your other question. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, so
Would you mind?
I think it's very unfortunate, at least the way Imran Khan has conducted and handled this entire situation in the last few weeks, right from conspiracies about a foreign hand to threatening martial
Yeah,
law, when it was
yeah,
very clear that he was on his way out. But let me ask you this question, because you made this point about how the army has handled it so far. The same army was very clear and responsible for the ouster of Nawaz Sharif. His brother is now going to be the prime minister, but Shehbaz Sharif, we understand, has been a lot more forthcoming in maintaining relations with the army. So,
mm,
how does the equation
yeah.
work now between the Sharif family and the establishment?
Yeah, I think it has. You see, Shehbaz Sharif could only become prime minister if he had sort of removed all the apprehensions of the establishment, and he had been chummy with the establishment for a long time now. Since 1999, I remember he was offered prime ministership when Nawaz Sharif was asked to leave the country, and this offer was made to Mia Sharif, father of the Sharif, Nawaz Sharif and Shehbaz Sharif, and this Mia Sharif declined that offer. So he remained a darling of the establishment all along. It was his bad luck that he couldn't become prime minister earlier. So yeah, he enjoys the support of the establishment, and you see, whatever he enjoys or he doesn't enjoy, it doesn't mean much. What matters is how the establishment now takes on Imran Khan, who is on a war path with everybody else in this country, uh, sort of pegging his uh, argument on that. I don't know what kind of cable that was. I haven't seen such a loaded cable that has sort of uh, pushed our country into hysteria, which is not very good for this country at this point in time when we are struggling with so many other things. Imran Khan has his support. There's no doubt about it.
Hmm.
But his support comes from majority of his support comes from affluent classes. Affluent class uh, like upper middle class and above. Uh, I'm not saying that he doesn't enjoy support in the lower middle class and in amongst poor. I'm not saying that,
Yeah.
but the majority comes from the upper middle class and and the elite. Uh, so I think that if that elite and that upper middle class that that cadre together, if they create problems on the street and then sort of make things difficult for the present government, the poor class would suffer very badly with existing inflation. The life is quite difficult in Pakistan. It's not easy, the price hike, the petrol prices, the power prices, the misgovernance, and you name it. It's nothing is going uh, in the right direction, in my opinion.
So, will it work for Imran Khan now to try and rally support on these issues to again, try and get people support? There have been several protests, largely of Imran Khan supporters
Yeah,
in many
yeah.
parts in the last few days. But when a sitting prime minister makes a comment about the Pakistani army and goes on to say, "I salute India and its foreign policy because it's better than Pakistan's, that they
Hmm.
work for their people, the Indian army is not corrupt, and they never interfere in civilian government." I mean, that's as brazen as Imran Khan became last month when he took on the Pakistani army. Now, if he thinks he can get the support of people and still manage to challenge the sitting government, you don't think that's possible, do you?
No, it's not because uh, uh, Imran Khan is he behaves like uh, his behavior is childish, at times. He was trying to sort of uh, 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 create some sort of problem for the military establishment to swallow that kind of humiliation that India look at India and look at their armed forces and look at their foreign policy and look at the government and look at the people who are quite upright. You see, I think he doesn't have any love loss for India. I know that exactly, but he was trying to play this card to just agitate the armed forces more. And you discussed about that tussle between the chief of army staff and the former DG ISI. Yeah, it was also uncalled for. Whether they were on the same page all the time, and he's been given tremendous support. I haven't seen such a support given to any prime minister in the past. But he ruined his chances himself, by indulging into the business of the armed forces, especially the army. Army doesn't like any political office to interfere in the business of uh, in its business. And it was totally uncalled for to keep. Uh, the former DG ISI with him for a longer period of time
Okay.
than was desired, and it sparked off a friction between Imran Khan and Chief of Army Staff, and which was totally uncalled for. There was no need for that.
Okay. My last question to you: What about Nawaz Sharif? What kind of role do you envision him now playing with his brother at the helm of affairs?
Nawaz Sharif has been calling the shots. Shehbaz Sharif wouldn't have been where he is at the moment without the support of Nawaz Sharif. Nawaz Sharif is PML-N, nobody else. Not even Mariam Nawaz. So Nawaz Sharif, I think I'm expecting his return to Pakistan soon, and he would be facing the cases, and there's a lot of hue and cry over the sanctity of the decisions against him. So he might get some sort of relief from the courts, but I just can't say whether he could play a direct role in politics, like electoral politics, or become prime minister once again. I don't know. I can't say about that, but he'll surely come back soon, and he'll be playing uh, the role of the patron, the godfather of Pakistan Muslim League-Nawaz. So yes, he's got an important role to play in this country, and he has ruled this country 3 times. I think he knows the pros and cons of moving of the requirement. I would say he knows the requirement for making this country or bringing this country out of this uh, uh, torrid time, troubled waters. But it will not be easy for anyone
Yeah.
to sort of deliver quickly. And since the last word, since this government has decided not to take its rule beyond a certain limit, I think we need fresh elections as soon as possible, so we could bring in a government which could decide, which could make decisions on its own. But I am very happy for the kind of conglomeration we have at the moment, because
Okay.
I know there are certain people who need who need to be listened to.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for being so candid and for joining us, and giving us insights on it, and on a very big day. In fact, even as me and Mr. Maidali was speaking, Shehbaz Sharif was actually addressing the Parliament, the National Assembly of Pakistan,
Yeah.
talking about what a great day it is in the history of Pakistan. And of course, he also indicated and challenged Imran Khan to come and prove whatever his claims and allegations are against Shehbaz Sharif and his family. So it isn't all done yet. It's not to say that if the National Assembly has elected Shehbaz Sharif, the United Opposition has elected Shehbaz Sharif as the next Prime Minister, Pakistan's problems are now going to end, and overnight we'll begin to see change. And I will tell you why. Firstly, because there is a big task at hand for any Pakistani government that comes to power right now, which is to deal with the ongoing people problems, the economic crisis, the lack of jobs, inflation, high fuel prices, things you and I are actually aware of even in our country. It's something somewhat similar even in Pakistan. Secondly, there are going to be elections sooner or later again in Pakistan. Imran Khan and his party don't seem to be right now in a mood to go away. They seem to be very clearly intending to continue their fight, challenging this opposition which is now in power, challenging them and continuing their political fight. But how will he manage to do that is the big question. He's lost the support of even his allies. That's how he was pulled down when his own coalition allies actually abandoned him. He's obviously not got any support in the rest of the opposition. He's lost the support of the Pakistani army and the ISI. Will the support of people be enough? Experts seem to think not. Then comes the issue of who is really coming to power. At the end of the day, again, it's a bunch of parties who've come together and really installed Shehbaz Sharif there. But the Sharif family, that's been a big part of the political system in Pakistan for so long now, almost 3 decades, also has huge legacy issues. So we will have to see how those pan out. We will have to see what happens to the corruption cases against not just Shehbaz Sharif, but also Nawaz Sharif. And if the current setup really fails to bring things under control in terms of people issues and deliver on governance, then the army may actually run out of patience and do what is actually done many times in the past. One hopes not. One hopes it doesn't come to that. Even in our neighboring state, with the army again thinks there is a need to come and take control. So that's where things stand in Pakistan right now. Thank you for joining us on this edition of Simplified.